Okay, so here's my take on hard rock on a GarageBand iPad. This is the bass of Spades. You can see the actual version of this on my channel, but this is a kind of how I did it version. So, first of all, the drums. I just picked the heavy kit. And as you can see, if I open this up, it's lots of parts just cut and pasted like that. But there are occasionally, as you can see at the beginning, there's a snare drum fill. Now what I've done with that one, for example, if I just go to edit, is that at the beginning you can see that I've played it in because all the lengths of the drums are slightly different. But one thing I have done is gone through and edited the velocity so that you have a gradual increase, so that you end up with something that goes after an initial strong snare drum. And then by the end of the bar, it's at its loudest. And then we've got the main beat, which does this. Now I've played that in and edited it and quantized it and made sure it's all ready to record too. As on my other tutorial video on Skyfall, the drummer, very often these days, the drummer can sometimes put their part on last because then they're playing for the song, which is ultimately what everyone should be playing for anyway. Playing for the lyrics and playing for the overall vibe of the song. So, as you can see, the drums go all the way through here, and then there's a little break, which is this bit here. If I just open this up.
You know I'm about to lose, gambling's for fools,
etc. And then at the end, I've just done a little fill there. So the next part down is the guitar part. So what I did here was to use the onboard guitar synth and the onboard fretboard. In fact, I think I did it here. And then just played that in from the beginning, because the bass part that I've put on isn't a bass guitar, it's my shovel bass, which is an audio file, which is this blue one here. Now, it's quite hard to keep the shovel bass in tune if you haven't got an external source. So I always tend to, if I do use the shovel, I'll record other tuned parts like piano or guitars first. So the guitar part, as you can see, I've played in as one complete pass. Now, I did this on Skyfall as well. You can use sections here in order to record bits and then put them all together, but I'm a bit old school because I've used multi-track machines back in the 90s and reel-to-reel machines and then hard disk recorders where the song was worked out beforehand and you just sort of play in your parts. Any mistakes you can play over, but it's you can't duplicate anything, but nor would you want to in an ideal situation. So these other green parts here are the two guitar parts that go with the rhythm guitar parts. So once again, they've been added using the guitar interface with the bent strings. So you've got this. It's quite a nice interface. It's particularly welcome for guitarists who want to do that sort of vibrato or bending or whatever. It's actually quite convincing. So then comes the shovel. Now, I put this through a distortion. You can see it's compressed up to the max, and it's got some. If I just look at this, here we go. I've just used the overdrive here rather than a bass amp. So you can hear, if I just go back to the beginning. there we go. Now, this is the main vocal down here. I did record a take beforehand, but it wasn't any good. So I redid it down here. But notice I didn't delete anything. I mean, I can't really use bits from that because also the audio levels are much, much different. I think I sorted out the input level as well so that it would be, at a good level. But you can see that I also had to tweak the end because the timing was a little bit off. Now you can do this. You can edit to a reasonable level on this, a good level of detail. If you open up your fingers until it says snap to grid off at the top underneath the record button, that means that you've got the finest possible control over the timing. So if I just go... Now, I was a bit early with that. The trouble being, if I was... just select that bit and bring it along a bit. It may work. But it dragged a bit. So, the only thing to do in this situation is to do it again, really. It's only a yeah. It's just that little bit at the end. On the vocals then, my plugins, I've got a lot of compression. I've taken all the bass away because I want the sort of raspy sort of rock sound, and my treble up. Now, if I go into compressor and the details, you can see that it's quite heavily compressed. The ratio is quite high. Really, with vocals, you're working between sort of 3 and 6 to 1, but I've got 6.6 to 1, which is essentially the amount of compression that it will apply. And also, the compressor threshold is set very low, so that the compressor is on almost all the time. But this is a rock track. This is like a metal track. So you need to hear the vocals above the sort of massively overdriven guitars, drums, and bass. So that's the reason why I've compressed it like that. If I was to take the compression away... it doesn't have the same power that it did.
Pushing up the ante, I know you want to see me.
Put the compressor on.
Pushing up the ante, I know you want to see me.
It's much more uniform in level and it sits over that mix much, much better. So there is a tuition video on the making of the bass of Spades. Have a look at the original. Hope you enjoy it. It's a bit silliness and also shows what else you can do with GarageBand.